racing right along then to question 5, the final question. Probably the best question to take note of, I suppose, at this stage for those who have entered in the past, because there have been a number of changes to this question. I believe there's been it's been broken up and divided a little bit and an extra part added. So as mentioned at the top, just don't copy and paste your answers from last year into this year, because you'll find you won't be doing quite as well as what you expected. Part A of this question: what environmental policies initiatives did you plan, implement, achieve during the qualifying period to reduce and monitor the environmental footprint of the business? Is there an environmental sustainability plan? Do you educate and communicate with your customers? Dedicated staff member? Is it a whole of staff responsibility to take it involved? Accreditation programs? Carbon footprint? What measurement tools do you use? And I can imagine this is one of the trickier questions that some businesses find it hard to answer. It is worth 10 points, so it is worth half of this total question.
You can't use what you've been doing for 20 years as your answer. So it's about this qualifying period. So we're asking you to think more about your business, and this isn't a one-stop shop for the footprint. It's an ongoing process. So
it should be in your business plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a missing part from last year. It rarely appeared in business plans, this part of it.
Second part of this question looks at the community. How does your business involve and or benefit the local community? Volunteer work, donations and community projects involved in, partnerships with local businesses and or community organisations. Is it job creation, employ locally, buy local? An example that we've had out of another workshop as well is one of the events actually got the local associations and things to operate their car park. So they got volunteers to come in and actually run the car park in one area and then help them out with other areas, and they took donations. So they're involving their community in the running of their event. So think a bit wider than just internally in your business what you're doing, and how you actually engage in the community across. Any tips from the panel in terms of how you would report on your community involvement?
This is quite broad, and again it's one of those ones stepping back from your business and looking around and seeing how do I impact. From the small one, businesses make sure that they buy locally, so everything's purchased locally and supporting locally. But just reading through that list, you can see there's an extraordinary amount of activities that you would do that could be utilised in relation to this. How do you quantify it? It'll vary depending on the activity you're participating in.
So I think the benefit and that demonstration is important. So you can say we support local tourism campaigns, for example, so we buy in. So what's the impact of that? Is it raising awareness? Is it building a profile? Is it encouraging visitation? So those sort of things that you can show support for, just have to take it a bit further. But I think the other thing too, in the kit, along each question, there are tips under each question in each category. And as well as the things in the slides, my suggestion would be that wherever there's a tip, you try and include it. So the tips are there because obviously that's what judges will be looking for, and they expect, where appropriate, that you would have addressed that or considered it. So the tips are there for a reason, and I'll definitely look at them. And so when you've got a list like this, go through it and say, oh, are any of those relevant to me? And if so, how can I pull that information together?
And with questions that ask for lists like this, point confidence is the best way to go.
So the tips that Melinda was referring to is actually at the top of when you download your category for your questions, so your questions for your category. It's actually listed across the top of that. So when you download that, print those out, and you've got all your questions in front of you, all the tips are there for each of the individual questions. So utilise those tips as much as you can as well when you are writing your submissions. How does the business communicate its environmental goals, plans, initiatives, and its achievements to staff, customers, and the community? So this is really just showing how do you showcase this to backwards. So what you've already talked about in parts A and part B, how do you actually communicate that and really showcase what you are doing? So is it the training that you provide to your staff? Do you put your logos up on, or do you put it up on your website or on your printed material, that your brochures and things? How do you actually showcase what you are doing to the wider community and the benefits that you're showcasing?
Kerry, this is a new question as well, isn't it? Yes. So would you recommend that we break it down, staff, customers and community separately? Rather than sort of grouping them all together.
I think that's probably a good point, Michelle, on any of the questions, when it actually lists a few different components, whether it's bolding, whether it's a separate section or bits in the table, just to break it out and have a few dot points under each one. So this is how I would address staff, this is how I would address customers, this is how I would look after the community. Just makes it really easy for everyone to read, and they can go, yep, great, I've answered each part of that question.
So each time you're reading an answer to a question, you're referring back to the question again and down, so you look at those key elements. So that just okay, first part done. Very logical.
And this is another one, sometimes we don't think to communicate some of the things that we're doing. So things like if you've got a latest news section on your website, in the next few months there's nothing wrong with putting a story on about your environmental practices or little tips around the environment. It may not be something that's featured on your brochure at the moment, for example. You may not be, the environment may not be your unique selling point, so it may not have been reflected in all your messaging. But there's nothing stopping you if you do an e-news or if you have a website, putting something on there to be able to showcase it in your submission. Particularly because this is a new question, so people might not have thought about how they have to showcase it previously.
Is there anything that any of you would like to say at the finish to leave a mark on the participants today?
I'll certainly say, we spoke about earlier on about being honest in your submission and being passionate about your submission. So any opportunity you get to put your passion into it, and it's all numbers, but where you've got that opportunity to show that so that when it's read, people can feel that sense of it and get a real sense of your business and what it's doing, take the opportunity to do that.
And my tip is to start early. Because I know that when I first did my submission, I spent, I can't tell you how many weekends labouring over it, and I honestly don't believe I got the best result. Because I left it to the last minute, I had 2 weeks to put it in, and it wasn't great. And with the mentees that I work with, I always suggest, try and do, I don't know, a question a month for probably 5 months until you have to submit. So I do a question a week, a month, but just give it the time and space. And yeah, that's my tip.
Mine's about the challenge, as Vince was saying, about distilling passion into your document, because the judges can feel it. And don't waffle, so get it there and draw it back and draw it back. Now comment about giving it to somebody else outside of the business who can read through it. A critical friend who can go through with a red pen and say, I don't understand this or whatever else. But the submissions that are written by people from the heart, you just feel it as you're going through it. They're so passionate about what they're doing. It's one of the reasons I've always enjoyed the judging and the mentoring, is you go into businesses and you feel this passion. You wish you could bottle it and take it back to work with me. So don't be frightened about being passionate about your business. That's what it's about. But remember, these are business awards. So it's about business. So focus on that, and primarily and overall, they're tourism awards. So make sure you're focusing on those things. It's business, it's tourism, and it's something that you're all passionate about because you're here today. So you must be pretty passionate about it.
My tip's probably quite practical, which is more about one of the things that I found really useful when I was writing submissions was to actually summarise each question in a paragraph at the beginning of the question. So once you've written it, sort of group it together so it sets the scene for a judge, so they know exactly what's going to come and what they're going to be reading, and that you've covered all the components of the question, and then list underneath that the specifics. So it might be around, we saw some examples today, if it's around business planning, it might be our business plan focuses on these core goals with the aim of our overall arching mission or vision to be this, and then list it underneath that. So it just sets the scene, the judge knows exactly what's coming up, and they know then you've answered the question completely. And that can be for each component within the question, so your A, B, C and D. You could do that for each. It may just be one sentence or it may be a few. But and you can just break it out, you might shade it or something like that so it stands out, a bit like in the Frankston Visitor Centre section when they broke out that quote. It just can break it up and perhaps guide the judge to thinking that you know a lot.
Key contacts. If you ever need to get in touch with us about anything mentoring, program-wise, and any more of these workshops, you've got any questions in relation to them, either contact myself, Melinda, or Monica. Monica and my details are there. Anything in relation to categories you should be entering, the gala ceremony, having issues booking your tickets online, talk to Kerry. She's more than happy to help you out with any of the other specific stuff in relation to the Tourism Awards. But good luck, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you in November. Thanks, everybody.